your tenure at Jomboy Media has just begun with the podcast Toeing The Slab with
Mhm.
David Cohen. You are the main host. David Cohen is the center attraction because David Cohen is a longtime successful pitcher, Mets, Yankees, Royals.
Mhm.
What who came up with the idea? I've heard rumblings that it was your idea came to Coney or Coney came to you. I don't really know who thought of the idea for the pod.
So I wanted to start a podcast for a while, but I didn't just want to start a podcast. And I was trying to figure out how to begin.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to have a little cachet. I didn't want to do it on my own. And I thought of David Cohn. He's obviously a brilliant broadcaster.
I think
And I
I
thought
think one of
about,
the best.
yeah, I do think he's the best baseball broadcaster out there. And I thought about how easily he conveys information and breaks down some new school methods and puts them into the most simplest form for the fan to digest. And I said, man, if we had that on some type of platform regularly, I think it would gain a lot of attention. And the pitching centric idea, because everyone has a everyone has a podcast, and there are a ton of baseball podcasts out there. So how do you make yourself different? Like, man, pitching centric podcast, perfect.
I don't know
I
anybody
went,
else that does that.
yeah, it was the type of thing where I had the idea and it kind of dragged for a while, and I'm like, man, I don't want to tell too many people about it because then the word gets out, whatever. But
Sure.
it was the type of thing where I went to David with it. And if he said no, I thought the idea died on the vine because there was no other person that I can just insert into David's place. So before going to him, I was nervous because I'm like, all right, either this happens or it doesn't. And David was really receptive to the idea. He was saying that he and James Smythe, who's on our show and is an amazing researcher and gives a terrific amount of insight as another host. And he said that him and James, who worked together at Yes, they were always talking about a podcast. So that's where the idea of bringing James in happened.
Very cool.
And from there, when we decided, yes, we're going to do it. Yes, we need to be consistent with it. Yes, we want to cater to a younger audience. Which place provides us the best opportunity to succeed right out of the gate and have fun with it and engage with a young audience always in mind? And everyone's first answer was boom, Jomboy Media. And obviously they like the idea enough to have us come on and join their platform. And it's so much fun. It really is. It's incredible watching how a whole company of young people just operate and get shit done. And it's I've been a lot of places, and it's impressive to see how organized and how productive they can get things done in short order. And I think it's just going to keep growing and growing. And we couldn't be happier being with Jomboy Media.
I think Jomboy Media in like 10 years is going to be competing with some of the big mega media outlets because I think the purity of how much they love the game of baseball, and I think they're going to be growing more because I know there's basketball, there's basketball content, and they're moving towards other things, but their baseball content is, I think it's the best in the game. I think they do a better job at than the ESPN does. MLB Network, of course, is the leader, of course, but when Jomboy Media, you get a great understanding of what it likes to see a diehard fan of said team give their input on a daily basis. Talking Yanks, they have over 700 episodes talking about every single solitary day about the Yankees and also baseball as well. And I just watched the recent episode. They're talking about prospects that were hyped up, and they were like callers were calling in and talking about, remember guys like, I'm like blanking now, like Jabba Chamberlain, and they were talking about his career. Like that is the inside baseball stuff that people love. If like the diehard baseball fans, but then they're bringing in other baseball fans including guys that and fans alike love about pitching. And that's why your podcast with Cohen and James is so unique. You guys have had Maddox, Wainwright, Corbin Burns, around Joe Torre, pitching
Yeah.
ninja, which is great. But my favorite one is with Maddox and talking about a story that I've never heard of, that he was just about to sign with the Yankees and somebody within the organization that was a part of trying to make the deal had a heart attack, and then deal never happened. And then he flew back, and then he got, I think it was through I think he flew back to Vegas, right? And then he got
Yeah.
signed by the Braves, not too later. I mean, but this is why I love this podcast and Jomboy in general, because they get the best to come in and dive in all these great stories.
Yeah. The funny thing about that Maddox story, I pride myself on when it comes to the Yankees. I feel like I have a deep grasp of their history because it's something I love. Like I love where the game's going, and I really do enjoy quantitative analysis and how that's going to tell a story of how the game's being played today. Like, we're not going backward, we're only going forward. So if you're not adjusting or adapting, I'm sorry, but the game's going to leave you in the dust. But I really enjoy the history of this organization. So I feel like I know a decent amount. And man, for the life of me, I could never recall who at the top of the Yankees food chain back in 1992 suffered a heart attack. And I was talking to people who covered the team then, and none of them said, I don't know if that's entirely true. Not only that, because if it is true, well, what happened after Maddox decided to sign with the Braves? Days later, they went out and signed Jimmy Key. So the person who suffered a heart attack automatically, recovered enough to give Jimmy Key a multi-year contract. Something about that didn't make sense. I wasn't going to question him. Also, Greg didn't sound like that was entirely the reason why it didn't happen. And let's be honest, from that interview, from the other tall tale legends that you hear about Greg Maddox, dude has a sick sense of humor. And I don't know if he was acting all that out just, then and there on our podcast. If he did, he has a phenomenal acting ability. But he was definitely one of my favorite guests that we've had so far. Glavin was another. I think my favorite guests are the older guys who are probably at that Hall of Fame level, because those are the guys that I grew up watching. But man, I've been so fortunate to have some of these guests on. We're going to have some, we obviously have some younger pitchers on. We've had Josiah Gray on. We're going to have a couple of younger pitchers who have really high ceilings that are coming on very soon. And I love the range of guests that we have. So it's been so much fun, and it's a great way to kind of stay involved with what's going on in the game right now. I think that's the really cool part about Jomboy Media too. This lockout stinks, but I'll tell you what, we're never going to stop bringing out quality baseball content. And the one thing that separates us from some other places that may have contractual ties with Major League Baseball Players Association, and right now they can't show images or have players on, we can do whatever we want. So I think that really gives us a leg up in a scenario like this. And even when the games resume, we're still going to bring great content. So it's been so much fun.